thank you for coming in.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you've both done this before or not, but endorsement interview, I'm going to ask a series of questions to both of you. It's mainly us asking you questions, but we welcome some debate if you'd like. Trying to think, I think that pretty much covers it. We will
Thank you.
ask both of you to kind of introduce yourselves and just say why you're running, or your best. Start us off.
Introduce myself and say why I'm running?
Yeah.
I'm Courtney Neron. I am the current state representative for House District 26. I've been serving since 2018 and have been re-elected a few times, so 2020, 2022, and now I'm seeking re-election in 2024. Currently serving my 6th year of service and hoping to serve another 2-year term. I'm running because there's still a lot of issues I care about. I feel like there's unfinished business and things that I've been working on that I really want to keep working on. I've built relationships and rapport. I feel really connected to the district. Still feel called to do this, and it makes a lot of sense to keep moving toward the goals that I have, which primarily circle around making sure that families and individuals in Oregon can thrive. My own family I'm raising in Wilsonville. I was a teacher before being a legislator, so I taught most recently at Tigard High School until 2018. And I serve as the chair of the House Education Committee. So a lot of my work is education focused, but I definitely saw so many challenges as I was teaching that my students were facing that still inform and motivate me to make sure that our families across the state are supported, whether that's housing or healthcare, whether that's mental health wraparound services, whether that is toxics in our environment, whether it's climate action. There are a lot of intersecting issues that I want to keep working on. So I'm running again to serve the district and uplift the voices of my community.
Thank you.
I'd like to start out and tell you a little bit about me, because I'm an unlikely candidate to be running for office. This is my 2nd time for running for this same seat. Lifelong Oregonian, born and raised in Portland. My parents married when my mother was very young. She was 15 years old. My father was 18 years old. We lived in a 1-bedroom house in Northeast Portland. My parents lived in the house. My siblings and I, we lived in the 1-car garage with the blackberries growing through the walls. There's a lot of drama in my house because my mother suffers with mental illness and my father struggled with alcoholism. Life was really, really hard. We were taken away from our parents. I lived in foster care in and out for years, off and on, multiple places, with my siblings, away from my siblings. My parents finally, by the way, they divorced while we were children, and they got back together again. They got us back. And, the abuse never stopped, but out of all fairness, I didn't know I was being abused. I just thought life was tough being a young person. So my parents had some dirtbag friends growing up. They got me, and one of them got me, and one got 2 of my sisters. Okay, we were sexually abused. So I know what that's all about. My mom finally left my father when when I was 14 years old, or just before I turned 14. And I got my first job at 14 years old because my father could not work. He was an alcoholic, and all he did all day long was drink. My mother, unfortunately, she just wanted to be a single woman, and I saw her 3 times between the time of 14 and 18 years old. So I got my first job, and I paid the rent at 14 years old. I bought the groceries at 14 years old. I know what it's like to have $5 to your name in 1984 to buy groceries. What you buy is you buy a 20-pound bag of potatoes, because that's how much they were back then. It wasn't a 10-pound bag. You buy a big bag of rice, and you buy maybe a meat product, a roll of meat. So anyways, what this taught me is this is a life that I did not want to live. I decided no matter what I did, I was going to work as hard as I possibly could. The 2 greatest things that ever happened in my life was my wife, because she said, "I love you." She said, "I believe in you." And she asked me to marry her. And then there's my little girl. The greatest gift I ever got was my little girl. She was now 30, and she's blessed me with 2 grandchildren. And they're a big reason why I am running. This is not my first time. This is my second time. I will tell you that I ran against Courtney 2 years ago. I never worked so hard in my entire life. I literally shut my businesses down so that I could run. I knocked on a little more than 18,500 doors. I lost 25 pounds. I got bit by 2 dogs. I gained 30 of those pounds back. I've lost 10 of it, but we're still working. I knew I was going to win. The conversations I was having at the doors were absolutely incredible. The one thing that I would say is really different between me and Courtney, I mean, I think Courtney's a lovely young woman, and I think she's done some good for this district. However, I will tell you this. The thing that's different about the two of us is I'm knocking on every door. I don't knock on just independent doors, Democratic doors, and Republican doors. I don't just knock on Republican doors. I knock on every door. Because I'm going to represent everybody, okay? Everybody counts. Everybody has a voice. It doesn't matter where you come from, how much money you make, what color your skin is, or who you love. None of these things matter. What matters is that you're in my district, you're in my state that I love, and I want to make sure that this is a place where people can afford to buy groceries, okay? People can afford to buy insurance. It's safe, and they're getting an education. Those are the real reasons why I'm running. So I'll tell you, 2 weeks before the election, I was up 14 points in my polls, okay? Our poll showed I was up 14 points. A week before the election, I was up 9 points in the polls. 30 days after the election, they called for Courtney. She ran a brilliant campaign. She had a commercial on there that was full of lies. It said, extreme MAGA Republican Jason Fields wants to ban abortions in Oregon. Now, it's a shame that the last time that we were here, we didn't get to say it on videotape, what my position on abortion is. But here's the facts. I have 5 sisters. I could never choose for them, and I will never take a woman's right to choose away, period. I believe that life starts at conception. I do believe that we're murdering an innocent soul when a baby is aborted. But I'm a man. I don't know how the hell I could possibly have the right to tell somebody else what they can do and what they can't do. That's my position on abortion. I just wanted to set the record straight right from the get-go. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Do you want to respond to that really briefly about the...
My policy when I run for office is that we need to make sure that our information is factual, based on actual quotes or votes and direct statements. I can't remember which endorsement questionnaire it was that you filled out. You indicated that you did not support a woman's right to choose in all situations, and that is something that is a fundamental difference between us. It's true, because I will support a person's right to choose their own health care. I don't believe the government should have a place in the decision about when or how to start a family. That is a personal decision. It was based on a specific answer.
I can tell you for sure that I was contacted by Oregon Right to Life, and they said, come on in for an interview. And so I said, great, when is it? This was on, I think, a Thursday. We're going to do it Monday morning. So Monday morning, I looked at my iPad, looked at my email at 7 o'clock in the morning, and it said, after our research and investigation, we've decided that it's not necessary for us to do a interview. And I was like, that's kind of odd. I wonder what that's all about. So I emailed her and said, hey, what's going on? What's up with that? And they said, well, you've made some statements that, kind of disqualify you. I said, okay, can I buy a vowel? And she says, you said you would not take a woman's right to choose, period. That's my position. All right, so there you go. That's my position.
Okay, I want to get to other issues.
Yes.
And I think we'll get there by asking, what I'd like to know is, what would be the first bill you would like to bring if you were reelected or elected? Start you guys.
Well, that's a good question. I told you I have grandchildren. There's probably nothing more important to me than my grandkids, my neighbors' kids, the kids in the state. The first thing that I would do is I would make sure that we have education standards for graduation. All right, I would make sure that we have standards. So Courtney Neron took away standards here in, I believe it was 2021. And then this year, she was asked to raise those standards back up. Graduation standards is what I'm specifically talking about. Graduation standards, and they have not been raised. So we have kids that are graduating high school that cannot read or write. We rank 45th in the United States for graduation rates, 33% of which cannot even read at grade level. Math is significantly worse. We have got to get education up. I want to make sure that our teachers have the tools, the pay, whatever they need in order to get our kids up to speed. We have to set our kids up for success. And I have a plan on how I think I want to pay for it. And it doesn't include raising our property taxes anymore to do that.
All right, and what would be your first goal?
Interesting. Sounds like you came to play today.
I did.
You cannot have it both ways. You also support a voucher system that would gut our public schools. And the funding for public schools is one of the reasons why I run on repeat. As a teacher, I have worked in schools where I have taught next to buckets. I've taught in stairwells because of the wings that were shut down for asbestos. I've taught without HVAC working. I've taught in overcrowded classrooms with kids who are homeless, who do not have wraparound services or access to counseling. You cannot have it both ways, because if we set up a structure in our public school system that guts the public school system and funds with vouchers, then we would absolutely be inadvertently, potentially for your perspective, underfunding and defunding a public school system I care a lot about. I want a system where it doesn't matter if you're in Reynolds or Riverdale, that you would have access to quality education and full resources and access to staffing who's well paid commensurate with the value they provide society. We are not there yet. You're absolutely right. We absolutely have a lot of work to do. So in terms of the work that I've been doing for education funding, and it would be among the first bills that I will be working on again in the next session, I came to play in the legislature on that issue. I ran because the Student Success Act was on the table in 2018. We delivered on that in 2019. That added and infused important dollars targeting specific goals for the state that we had outlined over the years. And what we've seen is that was not the panacea, right? That we absolutely have still structures that have to be addressed, whether it's the calculation of the current service level, which I've worked on over the years, whether it is the special education cap that's arbitrarily at 11%. We have work to do to make sure that all of our students have exactly what Jason's talking about: access to quality teachers, making sure that they're paid enough, making sure that our class sizes are small enough to have tight learning communities, making sure we have funded resources. When I taught high school Spanish and French, the curriculum were often older than the students, the teenagers I was teaching. We have to make sure that everything from the pay, which 90% of our state school fund, 80 to 90% of our state school fund goes toward, and that the pay is adequate and that the resources are adequate. I often say I will not stop fighting for education funding until kindergartners no longer have to bring their own crayons and Kleenex to learn. We have a system and a sector that relies heavily on unpaid work, whether it's unpaid for the teachers working beyond their contract hours or volunteers who show up and give of their time and their expertise to make sure that there's coaching and services that are supporting our school efforts. So I absolutely agree that we have to have a school system with strong funding. So I am here for that. The bills, to your question, that I would be introducing, I'm very focused right now on some of the bills that I introduced in the 2023 session as committee bills. I am very focused on special education funding. Making sure that we're lifting the cap on special education must happen. Making sure we're fully funding the high cost disability fund. We are not currently. Making sure we're addressing the gap between the double weight of a special education student funding and when they qualify for high cost disability. There is a gap, and we just make sure that the school districts find the magic money. We need to make sure that we are funding early intervention, early childhood special education. That's an upstream investment that oftentimes saves money down the road and also sets a student up for success. We're currently underfunding that, arguably. Regional inclusive services also needs to be fully funded. We have a lack of a statewide IEP system. When we were working on Senate Bill 819, the abbreviated school days work, the neutral expert told us very clearly that this was one of the things that was lacking in our systems, that we don't have a structure that serves students with IEPs efficiently. So I'm working on making sure that we have a statewide IEP system, but also a student data system that's interoperable across our 197 school districts. If a student who's highly mobile or who has an IEP moves, say, from Salem to Portland, it might take weeks for their documentation to arrive in their next school. We can come into the century we're in and make sure that we are delivering the services that student needs at the time that they arrive in their new school, and it's essential we do so. So those are some of the things that I would definitely be working on. I'll continue my work on the current service level. In 2019, I sponsored House Bill 2074. In 2023, I reintroduced 2739. These are bills that would have set up a better methodology for funding our current service level, because so often over the years that I've been serving, we have the recurring conversation about how much does it actually cost to fund our schools. We can do this calculation with more finesse, more detail, and make sure that we are more accurately predicting the amount that it will cost to fund the next biennium. I'm so grateful that the governor's office is working on this. They're working in partnership with our stakeholders and experts to come up with solutions around the current service level calculation, and I think we have a lot of gains we can make in the 2025 session to build on the work.
I want to bring up a topic that I'm surprised has not come up already. Can we just hit tolling real fast? How do you feel about tolling? What's your position on that?
I'm going to get there in 2 seconds, but I just want to say something.
That's fine.
I am a product of the public school system. I believe in the public school system. However, I also believe in charter schools. I also believe in home schools. And if we look at how our charter, our private schools, and our home schools are doing, they're rocking it, okay? We have excellent. The grades coming out of these kids are excellent. Graduation rates are off the charts, awesome. Public schools are where we're failing. That is where you're in charge, okay? That's where you set policy. You set policy, and we are ranked at 45th in the United States. We can't, you say a whole lot of stuff, and I appreciate all the stuff you talk about that means absolutely nothing. We're still ranked at 45th in the United States for graduation rates. And that's what we've got to bring up. We've got to make sure our teachers have the tools. Talking about doing it and doing it are two different things. And having it both ways, I'm not sure what you're talking about there. But the fact of the matter is, we've got to focus on our kids. There's nothing more important than that. So that is what I'm going to do. Now, as far as tolls are concerned, look, Courtney Neron ran this last time. She said, "Oh, I'm gonna tell you guys. I knocked on Courtney Neron's door. Okay. Now, when I knocked on her door, I didn't know it was her door. I ran up to her door and realized, oh, there's a camera here, a camera here, a camera here, a camera here, door ring bell. And I thought, holy smokes! And I see, oh shoot, it's Courtney Neron. What do I do? Do I walk away? No, they probably have me on camera, and I don't want to look like a chicken. So I decided that's not me. I went ahead and I rang the doorbell. Courtney Neron opens the door. Oh, I said, Courtney, it is an honor to meet you. And I truly meant it when I said it, okay? I truly meant it. I said, it's an honor to meet you. I've never met you before. I'm out here knocking doors. You can see here's your name on my list. I want to come by and introduce myself. So first of all, it's an honor to meet you, and I look forward to serving as your next state representative. And she was very, very nice, and she had a nice smile on. And anyways, I said, look, you know, I know that you love this district, and I know you love the people in this district. What I cannot understand is why would you support House Bill 3055, which is tolling, okay? It allows ODOT to mandate tolls on any highway, freeway, or road they see fit, okay? Why would you do that knowing it's going to hurt the most vulnerable among us? And your answer to me at your door was, oh, Jason, I did not vote for tolls. What I voted for was the study of tolls. And at the moment, I did not feel, you can shake your head, that's okay. At the moment, I did not feel that that was the correct thing for me to have any kind of an argument. It was very nice to meet our state representative, and I wanted to leave it on a positive note. So at that moment, I left. I will tell you where I'm at on tolls. I do not want tolls in this state whatsoever. Not on I-5, not on 205, not on any road, any highway. Now, if you say, okay, Jason, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to put a toll on 205. But in so doing, we will also add 2 additional lanes, which is going to give us capacity. This will allow us to get from, say, Charbonneau to downtown Portland in about 25 minutes. And maybe it costs $30 to pay for that lane. I'm okay with that. If we're going to build a new bridge that goes from I-5 or from Vancouver to Portland, and it's going to have additional capacity, I'm for that. However, what I am not for is, for instance, the Boone Bridge, which I realize it needs to be fixed. You guys familiar with the Boone Bridge?
I am actually not.
The Boone Bridge is the bridge that is in Charbonneau.
Okay.
It connects Wilsonville and Charbonneau, and it goes over the Willamette River. It needs to be updated for the big one, okay? Mm-hmm. Earthquake. Well, here's the deal. Why would we spend millions and millions and millions of dollars on this bridge? And they're talking about adding a pedestrian bike lane on this thing. If we are not going to have a lane that's dedicated to get you from Wilsonville to Charbonneau, and then additional lanes as well, I don't know why you'd waste the money, because what will happen is we will spend the money to retrofit this bridge, realize, oh, we screwed up, we need a wider bridge, because it is the worst bottleneck in all of Oregon. There is nothing, it's already, on my way here, it was already bottlenecking up. So I am opposed to tolls. I have a way to pay and not have tolls. And what that looks like is every 2 years we take our car through DEQ. Every 2 years your car sails through DEQ. All right? What I would do is I would eliminate that. They did it in Washington State in 2020. So 24 years ago, they eliminated DEQ. We don't test for emissions, by the way, okay? We test for codes. They don't stick the wand up the tailpipe and smell for hydrocarbons. What they do is they check for codes. Eliminate this waste of time, waste of money. However, what I would do is I would take that fee that we spend to take your car through DEQ, and I would charge that still. Let's call it a road use fee, and I would expand it to everybody who licenses everything from a scooter to a motorhome. That way, we all share in using our roads. All right. The other thing we ought to consider doing is, I am not for a sales tax, but I am for doing a sales tax if we eliminate something like an income tax, all right? Then we can collect dollars from people who drive from California coming in here to Oregon. That would be another way to, and then one final way in which we could get some money is in this state we buy a special blend of fuel, all right? And that special blend of fuel costs us 50 cents more per gallon. And this special blend of fuel is supposed to offset the carbons that go up into the air, okay? We know what we got in this state that no other state has. We have 1 million acres plus of Douglas fir. And you know what? When in 4th grade I learned that plants and trees and grass turns carbon dioxide into oxygen. We don't need to buy the special blend of fuel. I would take that 50 cents and put it towards our roads and our bridges. And I'm sure that you guys this isn't new to you, but ODOT says that between 65 and 82 cents for every dollar that is ever collected is going to go to administrative costs. Here's the best part about that. It won't stay here in Oregon. It's going to go to either New Jersey or it's going to go outside of the United States. We can't afford gas, groceries, and rent in this state. We cannot afford that. We can't afford tolls. Okay? There are ways we can do it. We can just reallocate dollars we already have. And I'm sure there are many other ways that we can do it as well. We can look at ODOT and see how they're spending their money. Maybe we should be doing a study to figure out how they're spending their money, because they receive a tremendous amount of money. And I'm sure a massive amount of that is in administration costs. And there's probably bloating between going here and there and everywhere else. But that's my position on tolls.
So similar question to you, tolls really the best way to fix our bridges?
Yes, and I want to just also put a pin in the accusation about graduation standards, and I'm ready to talk about the false accusations after this. The tolling conversation is one that I've shown up for repeatedly over the years of my service. The bridge conversation is one that I've shown up repeatedly over the years of my service. In my first term, we got funded a study to look at the seismic and capacity success of the Boone Bridge. The Boone Bridge is the I-5 bridge where your car will slow down if you're trying to get to Salem. So it goes over the Willamette River. It's near where Boone's Ferry went across prior to the I-5 bridge being built. It connects Charbonneau as a local road. Charbonneau is part of our Wilsonville community, which is south of the river, and it is the connector to the downtown. In 2019, this study that was funded ended up showing us that the seismic resiliency of the Boone Bridge is not good. It is wooden pylons, it needs steel. For example, it is just a bit too narrow to add the auxiliary lane that would help the merging traffic at Wilsonville South to be able to just simply go onto I-5 and then exit immediately on the other side of the bridge to get to the Canby-Charbonneau exit. I believe the number is about 30% of the traffic that merges then exits right after. So it's a very strategic potential auxiliary lane. And frankly, Wilsonville is one of the first places, I think there's one of the first places south of Portland where you have on-ramps but no auxiliary lanes. So that is one of the reasons why our traffic is fundamentally different in Wilsonville, is because all the traffic is having to merge into I-5. So we do need to have some solutions around traffic in the area for sure. It's one of the things that our constituents talk about all of the time. The impacts of traffic on a freeway town are great, as you can imagine. And we've got Elligson exit and the Wilsonville Road exit, whereas we don't have an on-ramp at Beckman. So there is one way that our town can stay connected when it's rush hour. And that's Beckman, which is currently under construction. I digress. So the tolling conversation came up in 2017 prior to my service, and that is the vote that he is confusing for when tolling was essentially set in motion. What happened at that point was that certain projects were included in the House Bill 2017 prior to my service, and certain projects were omitted. One of the projects that we knew needed funding is the Boone Bridge. The Abernathy was included, the Rose Quarter was included, but the Boone Bridge, our connection, frankly, between California and Washington, it is a coastal, interstate asset. I believe it needs federal funding. It is something that we need to make sure we are investing in as a state to get it shovel ready so that we can make the good argument for federal dollars. We haven't done that. I believe that the way that ODOT was setting that project up in our Clackamas County area was fundamentally disproportionately going to make essentially guinea pigs out of Clackamas County for a tolling setup. It would disproportionately impact the communities of first Westland, Oregon City, then Wilsonville, in terms of their general rollout. And the way that they were talking about making the Boone Bridge tolling a federal 129 project rather than the regional mobility project means that they would have to put the tolling gantry at the bridge, which would fundamentally cut Charbonneau off from their downtown, which I know of no other community that has to pay a toll to get to their own post office or grocery store. Nationwide, we have seen tolling work in different communities. Oftentimes, we see it in relation to other modes of transportation are available. If you can imagine this area that we're talking about, there is not adequate alternative modes of transportation, and we're talking about crossing a river. So we do not have the infrastructure in place to even consider this as a viable option. It was an unfair rollout for many reasons that ODOT was talking about. I believe that tolling is generally a regressive tax, and that it would be inequitable. When you think about the people that work in Wilsonville, they have been priced out of Portland, they've been priced out of Tigard, they're now at the urban growth edge in Wilsonville, and some of them are moving out to Donald Aurora to be able to afford housing, and they're coming back into Wilsonville to work at Swire Coca-Cola, or some of the other manufacturing that we have, or Target, or wherever. So they're working in Wilsonville and commuting to housing they can afford. If we then layer on an inequitable tolling program over that, then they're no longer able to engage with their employment and afford the housing, etc. I don't believe that ODOT properly studied their tolling plans in conjunction with each other either. The regional mobility pricing should have been studied in partnership with the 129 plans, which are those plans that would replace specific pieces of infrastructure like the bridges. And so additionally, they didn't have a definition of diversion, for example, that was satisfactory. So our Clackamas Caucus, a bipartisan group of legislators, bicameral as well, came together to really call out the fact that diversion wasn't just going to be within 1 mile of a tolling gantry. If you're wanting to get to Sherwood, say, you might get off even at the Donald exit and go up through Newburgh and over back to Sherwood. That's a lot further than 1 mile. So a definition of diversion is one of our call-outs. As advocates in our community, we work together, city, county, the Charbonneau community. We wrote countless letters, we advocated, Senator Woods and I organized a town hall. We made sure as a Clackamas caucus that we were vocal in highlighting our opposition and our potential solutions. We introduced 9 bills in the 2023 session. They did not get hearings. So I introduced, in partnership with Representative Vanessa Hartman and Representative Jules Walters, some of the most impacted representative areas. We introduced House Bill 3441 that would have put a pause on tolling to further insist upon certain things that we wanted to see put in place and considered, because it was essential that we made sure that if anything were to ever happen, that certain things were considered that had not been considered. One of those things also is administrative costs. There was just such a high rate of an administrative cost per toll that it was just a non-starter. I believe that we need to also have conversations about revenue sharing and making sure that when traffic is diverted, say through downtown areas as people get off of a freeway to avoid a toll, that we're talking about the impact of safety and more traffic on those back roads, making sure that we have clarity around how those those crosswalks, sidewalks will be funded, because we can't just call it a safety measure or a diversion measure or a decrease in the amount of traffic for climate reasons if all we're doing is sending people to Canby for groceries, which is much farther away than to downtown Wilsonville. So really doing a thorough study never really happened in our view, and as we advocated, we noticed that there was not a lot of accountability in getting back to us. So the Oregon Transportation Commission being appointed, we wanted to hear back from them and often did not. And now we are seeing in the roadshow that the Transportation Committee is doing that this conversation is coming up in multiple different ways. We want to see multimodal transportation. We want to see investments in a transportation system that really works for all people, whether they drive or whether they don't, and making sure that we have smooth roads that are seismically resilient is a value I hold. So I will continue to advocate for the seismic upgrades needed on the Boone Bridge, as well as the capacity capacity upgrades needed on the Boone Bridge in partnership with the conversation that the Transportation Committee is having. But what we saw ODOT doing was not taking into consideration all of the direct impacts on my constituents, whether they were individuals on fixed income, whether they were crossing the bridge to get childcare and back, whether they were a business that had deliveries they would have to then pay differently for. We want to have a comprehensive conversation. Otherwise, I was grateful that that bill we introduced ultimately became an executive order, and our leadership took action right away to make sure that there was legislative oversight. We did have a bit of a roadshow as well that came to Wilsonville. And we did have that pause from the governor to say it is stopped. But it's going to take ongoing advocacy, because we also need to make sure that we have functioning roads. And I do believe Oregonians understand that if we want nice things, we have to pay for them. And right now, one of the things we're really going to have to advocate for is a transportation system that's looking into the future and making sure that we're preparing adequately for growth, for climate, for the needs of our communities.
Just so that we're clear, so everybody knows, House Bill 3055 is the bill that you voted on. House Bill 3055 on page 58 is the first time ODOT ever says shall be implemented by, and it has a date. It is the first time. Never did it ever talk about shall be implemented by, not 2017. House Bill 2017 didn't have that. And because, as smart as you are, I brought your voting record, okay, in regards to education. So I can, House Bill 2024, okay, or excuse me, this year, House Bill 4095 in January is when you voted to make sure that we did not raise the standards. And if you want to see it on a piece of paper, I can show you that.
It's fine.
Okay, and then also 4028.
Was it a bill poll?
It was not a bill poll. It was the actual bill. It was the actual voting on it. It was not, the bill poll would have been something else, okay? The bill poll was a bunch of other things that you wouldn't even let.
Are you discussing the essential skills right now?
Yes, we are.
So to be clear, the essential skills
For graduation.
is a
For graduation
proper
specifically.
noun. It's capital letters. It does not mean just because somebody didn't do the essential skills that they cannot read and write. Essential skills.
That's correct, but we do have
please let me
kids that
finish.
can't read and write.
Essential skills was added as a graduation requirement not that long ago. Anytime we pass legislation, we have to be monitoring it. Is it doing what we want it to do?
Does essential
This
skills?
was not doing what we wanted it to do, and the Oregon Department of Education study indicated that as such. Understanding that Oregon had higher graduation standards than other states is an important part of this, because another thing that I have heard in the rhetoric is low graduation rates. These things are sometimes connected: high graduation standards and low graduation rates, etc. Now here's the thing, this is not lowered expectations. We want to make sure we're investing in the right things in education. And so what we have done is we have actually added graduation standards. We have made sure that every student in Oregon will graduate with civics requirements completed, with financial literacy completed. We are making sure that our ethnic studies standards are not only going to be required, but that the teachers will have the training to do it well without harm. We are also insisting on genocide standards being taught as well. We have made sure that any student that qualifies for an IB diploma is also going to qualify for those requirements, can qualify them for their high school diploma as well. And so making sure that we are talking about what standards we are putting in place is important to me, because what we're trying to do is make sure that we're training a workforce that can really engage with the economy appropriately going forward, and investing in the right things. So we've invested in summer learning, we've invested significantly in literacy, because we know that those are targeted investments that our schools need.
So I want to ask you both real fast.
Yes.
So we have to make an endorsement.
Sure.
And one thing that really helps us is being able to have, discovering the concrete differences between the candidates. And so differences on issues. And so to kind of get at that, I want to give both of you an opportunity to ask the other person any question you want. Ideally something that's going to illuminate fundamental differences between you. Just start with you.
Well, the first thing I would have just asked you is about education. I do believe that Do you believe you've made the right choices? Fact of the matter is how can we trust you if we rank 45th in the United States? We know that 33% of our kids cannot read at grade level. We know this. Okay? You say that you want safety in our schools. However, you voted no to have resource officers in our schools. You voted no to have metal detectors in our schools. Okay? You voted no for this. We do need safety. Okay? I mean, thank God we had in Georgia, we had a resource officer who stopped the shooter. Okay? So this just recently happened, if you don't know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about. Thank you.
So anyways, I don't understand how you could vote this way when you state. I mean, I got your little thing that you mailed to my house. Okay, that basically says all these different wonderful things that you did. You stabilized school funding. We have a $10 million shortfall in Wilsonville Wesleyan School District. All right, school safety. Now you voted no on HB 2223. Okay. And then we've got graduation requirements, HB 4028, you voted no on. So that's what I don't understand how you can be this champion for education. Look, I'll tell you what I want to do when I get elected, if I'm so blessed to get elected, is I want to work with our Democrats, I want to work with our Republicans, and I want to work with our non-affiliated. I want you guys to know something, okay? I've received 0 from the Republican Party. It doesn't make me upset. It just means that I am raising my own money, all right? If we look at how much money Courtney Neron's raised, and we look at how much money I've raised, it's almost the same. I've raised just slightly more. But the fact of the matter is, you know where my money comes? It comes from individuals like you, and me. And my money doesn't come from zillions of PACs. It doesn't come from unions. It comes from individuals. Okay, and that's what I'm running. So I don't understand how you claim to be a champion when we rank 45th in the United States for graduation rates, and to say, well, you see, our school's a lot harder than theirs. We have a lot higher standards than they do. That's why we're at the bottom. It doesn't make sense to me. That would never fly in a million years.
I didn't say that. What's your question?
How do you claim to be the champion of education when we rank 45th in the United States for graduation rates, have 33% of our kids that cannot read at grade level, and math is significantly less? It's worse.
Those are really concerning statistics you're bringing up, and I'll look into them. The thing that I want to highlight is that as an educator myself, this is the thing that I talk about in a bipartisan manner all day long with anybody who wants to engage on this topic. There are a lot of things that we need to address in our education system. After 30 years of underfunding and defunding our education system, after the measures 5 and 50 in the 90s, we've had so many different structural changes that have eroded the funding in our schools across Oregon. And the state has never really picked up the tab fully. So it is the thing that I talk about repeatedly. I am proud of having passed the Student Success Act, and it does take time and commitment because teachers know that flavor of the month and switching every few years is not a way to make sure our education system is stronger. We have to stay the course. We have to make sure that we're doing things like responding to the Secretary of State's Systemic Risk Report from a few years ago. We need to make sure that we are looking at both the nuances and the details and the big picture. After the Student Success Act, I really focused on stabilizing school funding because one of the other challenges is the yo-yoing. I want to look at the fact that we have a corporate kicker that's backfilling our state school fund as well. I want to look at the, making sure that we are continuing to stay the course on summer learning because we know that there's a slide that can happen over the summer. I want to make sure that we're investing in literacy programs where the teachers are trained up on research-aligned practices and really ready to go and leverage that to make sure that our students are improving in their scores. I look at investments in education as well as outcomes, and we have a lot of people that jump right to the outcomes. There are a few things that I do think that we can jump right to the outcomes. We know that cell phones and devices in schools actually do impact learning outcomes. We know that lack of nutrition actually impacts learning outcomes. We know that high school start times actually impact learning outcomes. There are some things we can jump right to the outcome. We know that summer learning can actually impact and improve learning outcomes, especially when it's well designed, especially when the schools have had the time and the targeting to make sure that the students who need it most are the ones that are brought in for summer learning. So these are things that I continue to work on. We have intersecting issues that we're going to have to continue to noodle on, things like paid leave Oregon, things like Senate Bill 489 and the 10-month unemployment. Those are things that are impacting school budgets. In my hearings coming up in our House Education Committee, we'll be looking at financially unsupported education requirements. We are a sector that's known for having unfunded mandates, and so we need to make sure that we're identifying those and really talking about how can we make sure we call out how much things cost. We know in the state that and across the nation, we have to be looking at chronic absenteeism, and there have been really robust conversations happening both locally in Oregon and nationally as well to make sure that we are addressing the root causes of chronic absenteeism and making sure that we're investing appropriately and making sure that our schools are responding.
Do you want to ask Jason a question?
Yeah, sure.
I didn't
moment.
mean to interrupt you.
So in terms of the insults, to ask an educator how you can trust that I will be diving in even further on this topic. This is why I stay the course, right? We need to make sure that we have people there ready to champion the right investments, stable investments, and make sure that we're studying how we do achieve those outcomes that, frankly, our Oregon kids deserve. So I will continue to problem solve in partnership with my colleagues, and we've had an amazing education committee that's worked on a lot of bipartisan supports for our students, but also for our educators, whether it's Just Cause for our education staff or whether it's making sure that we have paraeducators who have access to the IEPs. There are little things and there are big picture things that we must be focusing on, and I intend to do that. And I hope that you will believe me when I say that I will dive into all the complexities, whether it is something that I already am aware of or a new challenge that's being brought forward. I absolutely believe that education is something that deserves our full attention, our full funding, and a commitment from all legislators to invest in and problem solve for. In terms of a question for my opponent here, I think I would go to I have two that I want to ask. I would be interested in hearing your view on a bill that we passed, Senate Bill 554, which was our safe storage legislation. It passed on party lines in 2021. I sponsored this bill because I do believe that common sense gun safety legislation can save lives, prevent suicides, prevent accidental injury or death by children or of children, prevent mass shootings, etc. I'm interested in knowing if you would have supported our safe storage laws in Oregon.
If the safe storage law is to lock up your firearm, unload it, and then lock up the ammunition in another location, that is idiotic. That's like saying, you know what we're going to do? We're going to put the car in the garage, we're going to take the wheels and tires off, and we're going to put them in the attic. And then tomorrow morning when we go to work, we'll grab the tires and wheels and we'll put them on the car because we're going to use it right now. It's ridiculous. It's not a good thing. I do think that it is wise to lock up your ammunition. I don't have a problem with that, all right? Safe storage is a good idea. But if the law basically says to take the ammunition out of the gun, put it in a locked safe, and then take the ammunition and lock it into another thing. No, I think that is a ridiculous ask, personally.
We have one final sort of lighthearted question just to help people get to know both of you. The question is this: what were you best known for in high school?
Best known for in high school?
Give you guys a couple seconds to think about this.
I was voted most likely to always love Tigard High School in 1997 by my peers. I was involved in just about everything. I am having a hard time narrowing down maybe one thing I was known for, but I did a lot of community service. I was in just about every club I could be involved with, Students for Environmental Action, theater. I played soccer, cross country, track, depending on the year, basketball, tennis, and tried out for the dance team, but I gave that space to my sister. I really enjoyed high school, and it's part of the reason why I became a high school teacher. I believe that kids in high school need strong mentors. Whether or not they're set up to succeed, I had a stable family, thankfully. I had great friends, thankfully. Or whether or not they don't, they really need to make sure that people, adults around them, believe in them. And it was my educators, my teachers in high school who became heroic to me in opening up my world to the things that were beyond the high school walls. Maybe you can tell from this, I was kind of known as an optimist, and just really wanting to seek out all the different possibilities in the world. Yeah.
So you're most likely to love Tigard High School?
It was a random category. I think they made it for me. I didn't even know it was. I was like, that's what I read. Okay, and then it was a little maybe foreshadowing. I ended up returning to Tigard High School to teach. I taught at Tigard and Tualatin High Schools, a little bit like Dorothy, but as much as I love to travel and explore the world and have lived abroad, I do love to come home.
In high school, if anybody needed anything fixed, I was the guy that could fix it, no matter what it was, whether we were working with wood, or whether we were working with steel, or if we just had a problem to solve. I was the guy that fixed it. And I hope that I will be the guy that's chosen to fix the problems in House District 26, because we have many. We have so many people struggling. We have seniors that are skipping meals because they cannot afford groceries. We need it. We need help. Yeah, we need it now. So,
What kind of stuff would you fix? Like, we're talking like cars?
cars.
Or
I could help build anything. I could put a roof on. I built sheds for people.
Nice.
Yeah, that sort of things.
Well, thank you both so
Yes.
much. That's all we got. I think when the camera's off, we're good to go. I just want to ask you both what your birthdays